How's it going, everyone? So, before we dive into the episode, I really want to say thank you to everyone that is listening in, that's tuning in, that's enjoying this content and getting value from it. I really love that. That's why I do it. But there's a huge amount of you that are listening that are not subscribed, not following the podcast. And I really want to encourage you to please follow and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are listening or viewing this on. It really helps out the podcast. It helps out the algorithm. It helps more people hear this content that you already find helpful and that they hopefully will as well. So if you go ahead and subscribe or follow the podcast on any platform that you're listening on, and please share it with your friends, that'll be great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Let's get into the episode. How's it going, Tyler? This is a long time in the making, several years at this point, I think, right? So it's fantastic to finally get you on the show.
No, happy to be here. Yeah, I'm horrible. Really hard to obviously get a hold of me and get me somewhere and commit with the time without something coming up. So I appreciate all the patience and definitely looking forward to a quick chat and hopping on with you.
Yeah, no, it's totally understandable. Like, there's times of the year where I'm tempted to like hire an assistant, right? Where it's just like, holy shit, like I can't even respond to emails right now. Can I just hire someone to like just do that? But then it's like it's not really worth it money wise for the person. It's like it turns into a much more complex question then. It's like, all right, I gotta find something for this person to do other than respond to emails.
No, it's 100%. It's kind of like AI right now, right? Like, yeah, I could have an assistant, I could have an intern, but at the same time, by the time I come up with a prompt or I come up with what to do, I probably could have done what I was trying to have them do in the first place. So just not quite worth it yet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Tyler, for the uninitiated in my audience, why don't you tell everyone, how you kind of got into IT, what made you want to get into security? Probably wasn't even called security at the time, right? But like, tell me what that was like, right? And I kind of start everyone off there because there might be someone listening that maybe has a similar background, right? And hearing that someone else came from that background and was successful in this field, is maybe that one little trigger for them that says, oh, if they did it, maybe I can do it too, right? So what's your story with that?
No, absolutely. And I love kind of your preface there of like getting additional people into the field that are maybe not traditionally into computers or IT or any of that nerdy stuff, right? Like I go way back, and the field really does need a little bit of diversity of who we're bringing in kind of outside of just security people and traditional IT. We still need those people, but at the same time, like people with a background in business and understanding in psychology, real deep understanding in people skills and project management, all those pieces are fundamentally missing aspects that make some really great, security practitioners, whether that's offense, whether that's defense, wherever you're going. Each one of those brings a very diverse and different outlook on how we view technology and how we solve people problems, technology problems, all those things. So my background kind of goes way back to in early 90s, back when, security wasn't really a thing, pen testing wasn't a thing. There was some government agencies, some larger corporations doing, we didn't even call it, military called some of that red teaming, but prior to that, we were just doing, security. It was for curiosity, for fun. So I was doing phone phreaking way back in the day, early middle school days, and my motivation was very different than most people's getting into this. Yeah, there was some curiosity, and I was, very interested in, making things, do things I wanted, but my motivation was to call girls. We'll be real. I wanted to be able to call girls for free, and payphones were a thing. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have a lot of the technology we have today for easy communication. And, payphones were expensive. Landlines, took minutes, and, my family was not very well off. We were very poor, so I grew up in a rural community. Didn't have a ton of technology. So learned how to do phone phreaking by getting on a computer that my family's business, my grandparents owned a print shop, and they had one computer with dial-up, and on BBS forums and printed off all the things I could find, and did a lot of reading and learned how to break systems and do things that systems weren't intended to do, which I really did like. Wasn't intended to do this, but we could make it do it. You follow that through all the way up till high school, and definitely got caught in high school doing some things. And luckily, I had a great system administrator there my early freshman year, and he took a risk and put me on a team of 3 that managed the high school network for 4 years. We're talking, thousands of computers, servers. We were doing a big transition, Novell NetWare, the Windows domain, dual boot stuff. Doing migrations on that, going from token ring to Ethernet, so running wires, building computers, all that, all the way through high school. I was running pretty much all that by myself by the time I was a senior, and running a successful computer company while doing that in high school, and playing sports and stuff. So the hacking stuff just kind of naturally went with that. We went through the Melissa virus, the I Love You virus, all of the viruses, and I was kind of still dabbling in the underground, so I had all my handles and communicating with all of the other people, playing with Backorifice and Sub 7 while trying to maintain the infrastructure side. So I was doing both blue and red, or black back in the day, and that kind of led up into a career where I tried a little bit of college. They didn't really have, they had some traditional security stuff back then, but it wasn't really the offensive or pen testing that we have today. So got an associate's, but took a little while to get through that because it was just boring, and I was teaching everybody the stuff that we were supposed to be learning. So it was just not a lot of fun, and went down a couple of the cert paths, did some SAN stuff, and then doing that for long enough, you learn how to do things a little bit different and think a little bit different. And one of the things that I was fortunate enough to learn very early was sales and business. My grandparents, like I said, had their own business. I was at 12 years old, out door to door selling, bringing a calendar, asking if they had orders or things they needed for my grandparents. So learned customer service, had the computer store, learned a lot of very difficult customers and clients, and those skills, the soft skills. And to be honest, all of the stuff I learned from a technical aspect, give or take, it could have went either way. I needed to know some of it, and I could have learned it at any point in a lot of different ways. And I think running your own network, running your own computer store, all those things from a technical aspect were very important and laid the foundation of being good at the offensive and hacking world. But to be honest, my career's done so well, and I've been very successful at what I do because I've learned business. I understand how to speak business language. I understand all of the terms and what businesses need to be successful, and being able to articulate that up the chain and down the chain for both technical people and management, so that they understand what we're trying to accomplish, and I'm able to provide the value. And I think that's the thing that people really need to keep in mind as they're looking or not thinking about security as a role. Like, we really need people that have the ability to articulate, translate, and interface the technical aspects into other languages and other understandings that are not just technical. Technical people are not always great at project management. They're not always great at understanding business ROI and the difficulties of politics or interpersonal conflicts. They're not always great at the emotional intelligence side. We're very logical people. And so having multiple aspects of things that people wouldn't traditionally think of as security strengths per se for business roles, like those have been the superpower for me that have allowed me to integrate in so many different teams, doing physical, getting involved in working groups and in government agencies, and helping across multiple agencies and businesses, bridging the gap between public and private, doing a lot of the work that I tend to do, both offense and defensive help, have only been able to happen because of the soft skills and additional things that I've learned how to do over the years that are not really tangible from a learning or certificate or technical aspect. So I think that's kind of the short version of some of the stuff I've done.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how you bring that up, having a skill set of, like the business acumen, having that skill set of knowing how to kind of read a room and whatnot. I mean, all of those things are soft skills, right? And we're so bad at them. A couple months ago, I was giving a presentation to, a room full of like tech people and executives. And so I had to kind of like meet both parties, both mentalities, in the same space, right? And there was a whole like string of people that were giving presentations. I was by far the quickest, like cut and dry, right to the point. And at the end of it, the CIO only brought up my presentation, only said, good things about mine, and like only mentioned it, right? I was the only one that he was talking about. And I just, it's interesting because I think back to the different experiences that I've had that kind of led me towards that, right? And someone asked me, how do you structure, right, a presentation on a technical topic to an executive? Like, how do you explain this, deep technical topic to an executive to get funding to go and do this thing, right? And that's something that, 98% of technology people don't even know how to do. And on this podcast, I always talk about how to really like set yourself apart, right? Because that's how you actually make progress. That's how you actually, get paid, probably more than what you should, right? That's when you get a name for yourself and things like that, right? And so it's a fascinating way that you bring it up, right? Because I hear a lot of people just say a million different things, right? But the business side of it is probably the most crucial part that none of us ever have.
No, absolutely. And I caution a lot of the kids I do mentoring or internship or advisory for, colleges or even startup businesses. I tell them, like, if I could go back and redo what I did in high school, college, or even just to level up, it wouldn't be go take more certs, get specialized in anything. Like, you can always specialize. You always should have some specialty areas and really be able to distinguish yourself from a technical aspect. But I would go and I would be learning how to write, and I would be learning how to write both in business as well as technical. Technical writing is a very specialized skill. It takes a long time. Like, I was not a great writer when I started any of this, and to get even now to keep and maintain your ability to technically write very brief and concise aspects that may be highly technical, but can also translate over to the executive and be able to do both those in the same email or paragraph or report. Those will be absolute distinguishers for you as a person. Same for the business. Like, go learn business, understand how business language and money works, and not just money. How do taxes and ROIs and marketing, how do all of those business entities integrate and work together and provide information back and forth? If you're able to do that, translate that for technical aspects, and then provide business risk as well as the adversary's mindset, because we'll go back to the specialty. You also have to be very creative and distinguish yourself from everyone else by having that creative out of the box thinking, the adversary's mindset, and the understanding of what actual business risk is versus what, compliance numbers, all of the security that everybody tries to push with the FUD. Like, what is the actual risk? What is the probability and priority that we can put on this because of an adversary's mindset? And what are the things we're not looking at because we're not being creative enough or thinking outside of our typical boxes of, what needs to be tested and how security works? Like, again, those are the ways that usually if I get brought in, it's because this is a very difficult problem. It's a hard target. It needs a creative outlook, or it needs the ability to be able to delicately navigate some political or emotional rivalry between different groups and still say the same thing and still provide the same risk, but in a way that is articulated differently with some very, very good soft skills. So again, that's where you make your money. That's where you're distinguished. Those are the things that will translate over to a higher paying job, a much better opportunity, and the ability to kind of go where you want. Like, when the demand is high enough that people just want you because of your soft skills and your capability for the technical side, that allows you a lot of freedom to be able to say no to things and or go highlight things that you want to do that personally make you happy. Because we'll go back to the day, burnout in this industry is huge. And if you're not loving what you do and you're not able to appreciate the mission that you're devoting a lot of your time, money, resources to, you're going to burn out much quicker than a lot of the other people. And to be honest, like, there are days that many of us dream of going and working landscaping or construction because the burnout is so real. But that requires you to be very honest with yourself and find those things that make you tick, and having a little bit of a distinguishing characteristic allows you a little more freedom to be a little more picky when you're picking jobs, so that you can get into something you like and you don't have to go work at somewhere you don't love. We don't all want to die and get to 60 and wonder what we were doing because we burnt out 3 times and remarriages later or something. That's not what the point of all this is. You got to be able to do and balance life a little bit, and that requires some freedom, and that requires you to put in the work to go learn things that you may not be as comfortable with.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Earlier on in my career, really towards the beginning of my start in security, right? I had a manager that he was a workaholic, right? Like, to say the minimum. Like, this is the type of person that has literally been hospitalized several times, even still to this day, several times, for like mental breakdowns from the stress, right? And he like ran his entire team into the ground. He was known for delivering a lot of really high quality work at the organization. But he was also known on the flip side of that coin for running his entire team into the ground. And the turnover rate was, on average, if you lasted 12 months there, you were ahead of like everyone else. Like, you were in the top 1% of people that have ever been on his team, right? If you made it to 18 months, you were a rock star, right? And I remember working, 80 hours straight every single week for probably 8 months. And I get into a touch point with him, and the first thing that he tells me is, "You're not working enough. You need to do more." And I was like, "I'm doing 80 hours a week. Like, how much more is there?" Right? I'm getting my master's right now. I'm getting my master's. I'm a full-time master's student, and I'm working 80 hours a week, right? And he goes, "Well, you need to be going, 100. You need at least 100. He's like, "I'm working 100. How are you not working 100? And I literally said to him, "I don't want to be hospitalized. That's why I'm not working 100." And he told me if I'm going to be successful on his team, I need to be working more. And he told that to other people on the team too. We were all at 80 hours. Every single one of us. There was 12 of us on this team, and we were all at 80 hours a week. And I mean, literally, we would get yelled at if we worked 60 hours.
See, and this is what distinguishes a lot of the good companies now, and places that have reputations for not being good places to work. Like, there's sayings like, "For what are you doing all this for?" Like, if you're looking at
Right.
this, you're putting 80 hours in. Like, work-life balance does not provide the best place for people to be creative, for that initial inspiring team that allows you to do something different than anybody else is doing. If you're working 80 hours, everybody's burning out, everybody's at the same place you are, you're not creating anything great. You're creating something that everyone else is doing, maybe with people that are, great, but not providing their best work. You want their best work, like, you provide life balance, you pay them very well so they don't have to worry about money, and they have the ability to keep their head clear, and they don't have home stresses. Like, this is counterintuitive to a lot of places. This is why the 4-day work week works in a lot of places with high performers. Like, we're always going to output really great work. We're always going to get what needs to get done. If you provide that avenue for that work-life balance, and you provide all the things that are necessary so that you don't have to have that mind and stressors in your life, then creative comes out, and then teams mesh, and then what comes out naturally from those particular teams is something that is the magic. People think it's the places that are just killing themselves to do that. That has no value in this industry, and we really need to make that not the norm. And the places that are doing it really need to be called out, especially the people that are doing it. They need to be trained as to why this is bad, understand for themselves, like, what happened in your childhood that makes you need to do this in order to feel that identity and feel fulfilled. And then why are you giving so much to these companies? Like, again, I love the companies. Every time I've done a lot of work for a lot of small places, all the places I've worked over the years have been basically family, and we pour our heart and soul into them. But also at the end of the day, I look back and there are times where that balance is out of order. The company cares to a certain extent. The company as a whole is a company. They're going to move on. They're going to make business and make money. That's what capitalists do. That's how companies run. So just because you feel that loyalty and you feel the need to overachieve and provide something for the company doesn't necessarily always do that in reciprocation in the same fashion that you do. So keeping those things in mind as you build those loyalties over the years and stay at places, like understand why you're doing it, make sure your reasons are right, but also prioritizing yourself, your family, your health. You're no good to anybody dead. You're no good to anybody burnt out, and you're not providing your best self, the self that is unique to the industry, that provides that unique insight that no one else has, because no one else has grown up the way you have with the same life experiences you have. That unique perspective is critical to wherever you're at. And so bringing the best you with that unique aspect and mindset every single day, that's what the world needs. We need more people that are just good people, bringing their unique, not trying to be a clone of someone else, not trying to fill that imposter syndrome and go be someone else. Everyone's life and journey is at a different point. There's different chapters. Don't try and be someone else, and don't try to fulfill that role. We really need the uniqueness of each individual person. And I think the more that we start to make that the norm and realize that everybody is unique and brings their best self when they are themselves, that's when we start to get really good quality output, in whatever form that is.
Yeah, that's a really great point. There's a couple really great points that you brought up there. I think it's always valuable to kind of level set, right, where you are within the company. It's not like you're the CEO. And guess what? If you're the CEO of the company, the board can still fire you, right? You're not so valuable to the point where they're not going to fire you on a whim, right? A good friend of mine, his dad spent 18 years at AT&T, something like that, 2 years away from getting his pension. He was grandfathered into this pension thing. And then AT&T a couple years ago decided, all right, well, we're going to try our hardest to get rid of these people that are going to get pensions, right? And so for the next, year and a half, right, he fought really hard to just stay at the company, stay with the pension, just be there. Like he literally moved away from his family to Dallas because like they actually thought, okay, if we just tell him that his job moved to Dallas for the next 2 years, he won't take it, right? He won't take it. We won't have to do the pension. It'll be great. And so they did that, and he literally moved away from his family for 2 years to get this pension because he had worked towards it. He kind of planned his retirement around it. Right before he gets it, they let him go. Right? Like they let him go. They figured out some reason to let him go. They let him go. I think it was like 3 or 4 months before he was gonna, get the pension and whatnot. And he I don't want to say he had to start over, but like at a company, he had to start over. He had to find another job. He had to go somewhere else. He no longer gets that pension that he was, I wouldn't say that he was counting on it, but he was definitely being like, yeah, I'm going to get this chunk. He was obviously calculating that in. So like, you're never going to be so valuable that a company like won't get rid of you. I mean, in fact, when I was working those 80 hours with my team of 12 people, right, we were all told like a quarter into the year, hey, if you accomplish all of this, we're all going to get like giant bonuses. We're all going to get giant raises. Whatever you want, it's going to be yours. We won't even have to fight for it. And we get to December, right, when they're telling everyone what their bonus is and everything like that. And every single one of us did not get a bonus. We didn't get a raise. We got you should have worked harder. I know you accomplished everything that we set out to do, but you should have worked harder. You could have done more. You could have worked 100 hours a week, right? And literally, like the next week, I put in my notice, because like at that point, I learned the lesson hard, right? Because I liked the company. The company felt like a family to me. And unfortunately, it was just this one manager that was like that. And I tried very hard to move within the company, to avoid leaving because I actually liked it a lot. And that didn't work out because there was just no openings on other teams, right? And so when that happened, when I learned I wasn't getting a bonus, it's like, oh, okay, I learned this lesson a very hard way, right? But let's just go find something that like allows me to have a life outside of work.
Yeah, and those are great, valuable lessons. These are the lessons that I think need to be vocalized more, especially from the veterans that have been through some very hard lessons. Like, we need the next generation to know that they have to put in the work, right? We've got 15-second attention spans from TikTok generation, and a lot of the kids are not wanting to learn how to learn, or taking a little bit extra time learning how to learn. We want them to go through some of the hard lessons and put in the time as a sysadmin, or learn how to build a computer and understand the protocols. But on that same token, I've kind of changed my tune a little bit, because we don't have the luxury of providing or having that much time. We don't have a decade for these kids to learn all this, especially the hard lessons. And so, while it is great for them to have to go learn themselves and or fail themselves so they can figure it out, we need a lot more people in this industry, and we need them very quickly. A lot of us are getting up there in age. A lot of us have gotten burnt out. We have hundreds of thousands of jobs and fill positions that need to be filled, but with requirements that are just unfeasible now. There's just not enough of us that started in the beginning. It's a time issue. We don't have that decade to kind of fill that time. And so, getting these lessons out there and articulating these lessons to the next generation so they learn faster, they don't fail as much, and they can shortcut some of the things that we had to do. Like, what is the fastest way to get to the minimum viable knowledge while still learning some of those lessons, but maybe only secondhand, so you don't have to go through them and have 5 years of bad management and poor work and horrible health and all the things to get to the next job where you've learned that lesson and now you're doing better. Like, let's learn the lesson from someone else and start to translate those into the next generation, or the people that are being mentored. Make sure they're not making a lot of the same mistakes, and short circuit some of this so we can get the next wave of people in here that are good at what they do, have some background, but have some background from the people that have been doing this and learned it the very, very hard way. I think those would be the things that really would be nice to get out there more, hear vocalized more, and even have places that people can talk about it and ask questions or be mentored and hear some of those hard lessons so that they understand and get some advice. And that's the mentoring platforms that I think are slightly missing. There's small communities here and there, but I think getting a lot of the veterans to open up about some of the shortcomings and failures and real hard lessons learned needs to be wider spread and more listened to.
Yeah, that's valid, right? That's very true, because we do that in so many other areas of technology, right? Like when there's a breach, when there's an incident, when something goes good or bad. I mean, you're writing down every single little thing that happened. It was like, oh, I typed this command, here's the result, all this sort of stuff, right? But we're not going out there and kind of like putting the work in. I mean, I try to, right? Like, I feel like when people take the initiative and they reach out to me and they ask for help, I then respond with that same kind of mentality, that same kind of effort, right? But, when I remember you bring up, companies having like unrealistic requirements for jobs, right? And I remember seeing the creator of Kubernetes. He, was looking for a job, right? And he saw this like Kubernetes security admin role, whatever it was at this company, and they required 10 years of experience with Kubernetes. This is like 6 or 7 years into Kubernetes existing, and this guy created it.
From inception.
Right? Yeah. So he reaches out to this company because he was actually interested in working for the company, talks to the recruiter, and they're like, yeah, we don't think you're a fit. Like, we're really looking for someone with like 10 years of experience with Kubernetes. And he was like blown away, because he's like, I literally created it. Like, I literally created it, worked for Google, did my time, left, and like, this is all I know. Like, I don't know how much more experience I can get. And they turned him down. They turned him away at the HR door, right? And like, that's so insane to me. And that still happens constantly. I've been in security for 10 years, right? And I have like some top level certs, right? CISSP, CCSP. I've had the hardest AWS security cert, right? That I just like lost all my hair over, right? So it's like I know what I'm doing. But then like some of these HR requirements will be like, you need 15 years in literally in cloud security. And I'm sitting here like, when was AWS invented? Because like it has not been around for that long.
Yeah, it is one of those frustrating things, and this is when I do some advisory work for some of the startups, or even when I'm counseling, at the CISO level. It is one of the things that is truly frustrating. We have this huge shortage of technical talent, supposedly, which we do. We've got, a lot of, there were only so many of us at the beginning. We've only gone so far with so many years of experience, and there's only so many people to go around. So the requirements are out there, and there's not enough of us. But on that same token, there are a lot of really great candidates, people that, like you said, invented some of the stuff, like literally wrote the book on the thing that is being hired for, and they can't get past the HR door. Like, we've got to change. HR has its place. Traditionally, they do a great job, and they do a job that fundamentally fits the old way of how hiring and recruiting and all the stuff had to happen. For technical aspects, especially security, especially highly specialized skill, HR just needs to be taken out of the loop. There's literally no place for HR. There's literally no place for the software, the recruiting. Like, I can't say in the last, like, for highly specialized people, in the last 5 jobs, I've not filled out an application. I've not seen the job posted. I've not went that way. I've went through a network. Someone knew a job, knew that I would fit, or I seen something or heard through my network that this place is going to be looking. And it was through relationships. Relationships is how the technical world understands, because it's a relational transaction in a technical form. You need to know that you can trust them. You need to understand that they know what they're talking about. And that's only built through experience of very long-standing projects or technical scenarios that have went down in which you've contributed to. And those aren't something that you can put on a resume. In fact, a lot of the stuff I do can never be talked about. Like, you can't really put that on a, like, can't tell you classified, or it can't tell you that's not something that I can actually say I ever did. Like, those things don't really work. So you got to have those trust networks and really build that relation around I would say around your community and the people that are getting placed in positions of hiring or building out teams, and then making sure that you're passing that info and helping people get into those roles through those relationships. Because until we take HR out of this, until we take all the job posting and recruiting out of the technical aspect, it's not going to get fixed, and it's not going to work. So keeping those relationships and getting people placed is literally, who do you know? Who does your friend know that knows you, that you can actually vouch for? And then keep doing good work at the places you're at, so you build a reputation, you build a name that can then be leveraged, so when you need a job, you can just go look. You don't have to go look for job postings or boards. You've got friends out there trying to find and place you. Yes, there may be a job posting and the job requirements don't fit, but they can go around you and go to the hiring manager and put in a word and say, you just need to look at this guy. Like, don't make him go through the HR. They're not going to get there. If you don't have some of those networks, like, reach out, build those communities, find the places you can help and contribute, mentor, get into those relations, spend the time networking, go to security conferences, hacking conferences, go help in a community, a hackerspace. Like, you've got to have that face time. Like, it's been probably 6 years since I've been on the black hat, like, actual, attending talks or DEF CON, attending talks and doing stuff. I'm there to network, keep my community alive, help mentor the next generation, meet new people, integrate into other communities. Like, that's what the hacker cons are for. That's what the security and technical cons are for, is building those networks and relationships so you can leverage those at the point in time that you need those. And that becomes very important once you go to find a job, I promise. If you're not there yet, like, there's some hacks and tricks, like, reach out to some of the community, white text in there with all the keywords for all the jobs so that you get through the stupid HR robots and stuff. Like, there's some tricks to get into some of the places, but really, relations and networks is how this has to get fixed. And until it's there, you're going to have to play the game a little bit and make sure your relations and networks are getting built better.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I've done several episodes on the importance of building, a reliable network between people and, connecting with people in the industry and whatnot. The value that it actually gives, and this podcast, this platform, right, very small in comparison to other platforms, but it allows people that I would not normally know or hear about or anything like that reach out to me and say, oh, hey, I like how you think about this. Can I get your opinion on this? I think you might be a great fit for this role, right? And that's happened a couple times now, and it kind of like throws me off guard every time it happens now, because it's like, man, if I didn't have this platform, like basically no one listens, right? I mean, I don't know how many listen. I haven't looked at my numbers in like a year, but in my mind, it's just a conversation between me and you. I'm not talking for 3,000 people. And I think that's probably like what makes it special. But like, I'm not thinking I'm going to get all these opportunities. Like, for instance, someone that I know that's a pen tester reached out to me. And I'm not a pen tester, like not at all. I'm a cloud security guy, but I don't pen test to save my life, you know? And he reached out to me and he said, hey, I'm trying to pen test a cloud for the first time ever. I don't know Azure. I don't know GCP. I don't know any of this stuff. I need someone to literally just go in there and guide me around and tell me what to do, what to look for, and things like that. I mean, that opportunity never would have happened without the podcast, like 100%, because like he literally found me through the podcast. He literally came on the podcast, like that's it's interesting, just how connections can be built through ways that you wouldn't even expect. But, to maybe kind of shift gears, Tyler, I got to ask you, did you ever go and do any work for any like government agencies? And I ask specifically because you're doing a very bad job of hiding all your challenge coins in the back there. And so I know what those are. And obviously I can't see them clearly. It alludes to me that you may have, done a little bit of work.
I do quite a bit of work with different agencies and have done work with different agencies abroad and home. So yes, there's a lot of great working groups. There's a lot of great collaboration happening, public-private sectors that just people don't realize. You see a lot of the operations for DOJ, FBI. You see a lot of the takedowns. You see a lot of ransomware pickups. You see people getting arrested all the time. Like that's not usually even just a government agency. In fact, that's usually public-private partnership where most of the private people, like with zero, I would say zero accolades. There's no press. There's no one's ever going to talk about it. Those things are happening every single day, and there's a lot of people, unsung heroes all over the world right now that just are doing incredible work. Like I can't even tell you like some of the people I get to work with on a regular that just have saved the world literally multiple times, and no one knows. No one knows their name. They're not a thought leader. They're not some infosec superstar. Like most of the people that are doing extremely good, valuable, meaningful mission level work collaboratively in small working groups and then passing intel to governments that then handle stuff, or even doing and going and working with the governments to make sure stuff gets handled. Like these people happen and do this every day, and you would never know them. They're no egos, very, very down to earth people. In fact, a lot of them have very normal day jobs, and you would be surprised at the level of technical aptitude and ability for them to not have an ego because they never get any credit for anything. And that's kind of the motto of a lot of places and people I do work for is there's never any credit and you just do the work. So those are the people that really inspire me and provide the mission. And that's kind of the next iteration of who I am, is where can I do work that doesn't get talked about, that is very meaningful and is actually moving the needle. Like, to be fair, I say infosec and I say security and I say especially red teaming and offensive work. It's tainted for the last decade. It's been very, very rock star oriented, very varsity. Like, why are we not highlighting the work of blue teams, the people doing all of the hard work and securing the things that we go break? Like, we've not been or done a good job of helping the blue side. We got some purple, but like, we'll be real. The egos within inside of the offensive space, the red team, Like they're not superstars. It takes a ton of work to get there. Yes, it's hard work. You got to know everything about everything and really understand how everything works and be able to build it all and tear it back down and get real deep understanding. But people that have to do this day-to-day grind, like we break stuff and pass it off over the decades, like that's broken. And so I've really burnt out on the industry of just seeing all the companies and startups and big names getting lots of money and lots of startup funding and not doing anything that is actually moving the needle. We've not seen ransomware go down. We've not seen attacks go down. We're not protecting ourselves that much better. There's always new stuff coming out, and I love to go break stuff. I love to find new stuff. I like to go find O'Day as much as the next red teamer. But until we start to responsibly do that, help the blue team build collaboration and facilitate relations that are meaningfully securing the world better, so that mom and pop shops aren't going out of business because they get ransomware. I've had to adjust and put my energy and efforts and kind of go under the radar more to help the places that are doing good work. And there's, like I said, those unsung heroes and people doing the meaningful work. No one would know. You'll never know. And just it's good places to kind of find ways to really bring some meaning back into your life once you've burnt out a few times. Like, I don't want to discourage anybody from getting into the field and going down that path, but find places that are doing good, meaningful work outside of just making a dollar, building a product. Like most of those things, we've been doing this, I've been doing this almost 3 decades now, and
Jeez.
It's not like there is literally nothing has changed. It's the same as it was 10 years ago, as it was 20 years ago. We've not moved the needle that much. There's just more things to look at, more things to do, more things to secure, and we've ever increasingly made this complexity that is causing more and more issues and more vulnerabilities, and no one can seem to keep up or get ahead. So have we even done anything better for society? Have we created anything that is actually meaningful? Are we securing things that are meaningful and building things that are better in the world? I'm at a place where I don't think we've done a great job there. And so I think finding things and places that are doing real good, meaningful work outside of what they're building and contributing that and allowing their employees to do that more and more, I think those are the places that you'll see talent get attracted to, and you'll see the veterans that will then mentor the people with inside that company. And so finding those places so that you can get mentored or become one of those veterans to mentor, like those are the places you really have to look for, and they're very hard to find. Like I'm getting real picky with where I work and why I work there. So
yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what we started with, was having those social skills, right? I feel like, you always hear about the offensive guys, right? Like you see, O'Day going on Sean Ryan's show. It's like, okay, well, when
who's writing the Yara rules?
Right.
Who's contributing to this?
Right. Who's the guy that's the Yara expert at your company that's underpaid, that just spent, 80 hours trying to script it out in a language that, most people don't even realize exists.
And not break anything, because no one,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that get blamed as soon as something breaks. It doesn't matter if the pen testers break it or the red teamers break it. That's part of their job. It's fine.
Yeah.
They don't have to be careful or as careful. I'll be real. Like, there's stealthy operations. There's good red teams. Don't discount me. I'm a red team. I'm an offensive guy. I get it. We do good work, but we don't take the same care that a lot of these places have to understand the scalability. And we really are at that, like, varsity football quarterback, right? Like, no one's given that outside the center blockers any credit. They're the ones protecting the quarterback. Like, okay, he made the throw, but did anybody look at who, made that throw happen because they blocked, and the entire team, managing and handling all that? The offensive team is like the quarterbacks. They've gotten the credit for so long. They're doing the one play that makes a big thing, but there's a lot of work that goes into doing security, and the blue team we just really need to stop idolizing the hacker mindset. Well, I'm gonna change that, because hacker, I believe, is the creative. We need to take back that word from the criminals. Like, hackers are the creative side that I believe is good. The criminals, we really need to stop idolizing the criminals, stop making characters out of them and giving them fancy names. Like, why are we not highlighting and idolizing the people that have to protect against these adversaries? And let's make the varsity team, the cool kids, let's make them the blue team again. Like, they're the ones doing the hard work. They're the ones putting in the effort. What about the people that are building this technology and coming up with all the new stuff rather than the people breaking it? Let's make sure we're idolizing it and really bringing back the industry to the things that matter, which is we creatively build things that just no one thought could be done. And then the breakers, like, we'll be real, like, it's hard to break. It's very difficult to understand all the technologies all the time about all of the aspects of everything. But making sure we're really promoting the blue team from our stance and our side too, even if it's just within our company. Like, hey, blue team did a great job. They detected this. They had to build a YAR rule around something that, that I built that was very, very stealthy and very difficult. Like, let's highlight their work rather than the cool thing that we just did. And that goes back to the ego and being unselfish and getting a little bit more empathy around each other and promoting each other so that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never been on the other side. I've always only been on the blue team, right? So like, I'm used to like no one knowing my name. If you know my name, it's a really bad day for you, basically. And I've always like kind of played that more, I guess, like business centric, blue teamer, where it's literally like, hey guys, I have this sledgehammer over here, right? Like, this is fully approved. I can use it whenever I want to. I really do not want to because that makes me, having to do a lot of work, right? How about we just resolve these vulnerabilities, And that actually gets a very positive response, right? Because I feel like a lot of these people, they're used to dealing with people that either are that sledgehammer or they are someone that doesn't know how to vocalize, the importance of this vulnerability being resolved and whatnot.
Well, it
And
goes
so I
back
have
to
a
our
good,
original side, right? Like, if you don't articulate it in a language that is understood, that's business, that's risk, that's dollar amounts, that's brand reputation, like the things that matter rather than the technical aspect of I can pop a SQL injection vulnerability that dumps a database table that gives me all the hash password. Like, okay, the CEO's like, what does that mean to me? Is that money? Is that risk? Like, what is the business language? And once we learn how to articulate that, right, like, that's when it becomes a much better conversation. And if we can take ego out of that even further and get highlight blue team's ability and really address root cause and root cause analysis of these things, that's when we start to change companies and companies become better. But that starts with people, and that's relationships, and that's laying egos down, and all the things that are becoming very difficult for a lot of people in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really kind of took the audience on a journey here, right? We kind of gave them a blueprint, so to speak, without saying it, of like, really how to be successful, how to like stand out in security, right? Like, we talked about maybe the key area of security that no one else really has, which is that business aspect, talking to people, getting that buy-in, right?
Yeah.
Making the connections, getting those skills that not everyone has, and becoming marketable, I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. If you do all of those things, like, you're going to be successful. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's not a if, it's a when, and you have to be very, persistent with it as well. Well, Tyler, unfortunately, like, we're at the top of our time here, and I'm very strict with, when I tell you we're gonna end at a certain time, we're gonna end at that time. But
Appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed having you on. I'm definitely gonna have to have you back on. But
Absolutely.
before
Not in
I
a
let
year, hopefully.
I had Jack Resider on, and he literally told me, he's like, hey man, it took you 18 months to bring me on. How about like we make this a little bit more frequent, right? Don't make it a year, like make it like 6 months. And I've done a terrible job of following up on that, and so I need to like have more guests come on regularly. I think that'll be a good flow or addition, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This was definitely not the technical, interview of any kind that usually happens in some fashion. But I think from a business standpoint, you pay attention to this. This is how you build good teams. This is how you find and recruit talent. From leadership, this is how you really aspire and motivate teams to do better, be better, and get to a place of being better. And those coming up, that's how you get a good job and land at a good place that are doing these things, and hopefully they all paid attention and got a little bit out of it. But yeah, let's do it more regular. We'll find a couple interesting technical topics and see what I can talk about at a particular time.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be awesome. Well, Tyler, before I let you go, how about you tell my audience, where they can find you, and maybe if you want to, give a shout out to your company or, any work that you're doing right now.
No, I mean, anybody can reach me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, LinkedIn. I think it's at Tyler Robinson. It's always my name in some form or fashion. Security Weekly podcast. I'm on there once in a while. I've kind of taken a step back, like I said, to kind of prioritize and highlight some of my stuff. A lot of my work is outside of those communities, but feel free if anybody's looking for mentorship, looking for communities to get involved in, has questions, like you can always find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, or I'm sure there'll be a link in the bio there with a couple of my handles. So reach out on one of the 500 platforms we have out there today, and I'm usually pretty good at responding. Sometimes it takes me a while, so please be patient, as Joe knows. But I do try and respond to everybody and make sure that I get back to you. So I appreciate everybody kind of hanging out and listening. Like I said, don't be scared to go get involved and find someone that has done this for a while and learn something from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode.